Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Earl Rush, and I would like to welcome you to the Straight Up Talk Show with Earl Rush. This evening, I have the honor and the privilege of having a special guest, Dr. Sylvia Traymore Morrison. She's a pioneer, a trailblazer, and a living legend. In my younger days, I used to might fool around and have a drink or maybe take a little toke or something when I needed to feel a little up. But nowadays, when I'm feeling down, all I have to do is think of my good friend, Sylvia Traymore Morrison, Dr. Sylvia Traymore Morrison, and a smile comes to my face. I'm not going to give away the interview and tell you all the things that she's done. I'm just going to give you a few highlights and we're going to get right into the interview because Sylvia always has something going on and she's always so busy. And I'm honored that she was able to take a few minutes out of her hectic schedule to interview with me tonight. I love her to death. Just a few snippets of her career to make you entice your appetite on why you should listen to this interview. Sylvia hosted a roast in Harlem at the Apollo for the fabulous Muhammad Ali, the world champ Muhammad Ali. She toured 23 cities with Whitney Houston at the height of her career. She's also the first Black female associate writer for Saturday Night Live. I could go on, but I don't want to give the interview away because if I give you all the details, why would you want to watch the interview? I love her to death. She's an inspiration. She's a very positive person. The only thing that I have negative to say about Sylvia is only one thing. She takes all my friends. Every time I introduce Sylvia to one of my friends, I don't hear from them for months, but when I do hear from them, they ask me about Sylvia. But they'll tell me admittedly, I like Sylvia. I like Sylvia better than you. But what can I do? That's just how it is. Let me see if I can catch up with Sylvia.
Hey Earl, how you doing?
How you doing, girl?
Oh my goodness. I'm sitting here listening to you thinking, shucks, I want to meet Sylvia.
well, you, I don't have that clip, but the clip where you introduce yourself. Nobody can introduce yourself better than you.
Oh my goodness gracious. Yes.
So
Hmm.
I got a lot of new viewers, Sylvia. So I know you've gone over your story thousands and thousands of times. So maybe some of your friends might say, "Oh, I know all this about her," but we got to go through it anyway because you have millions of people out here who do not know who you are because you've been in the business for 51 years. Most of these people weren't even born when you were out, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you are still here. You've opened so
Yes.
many doors. So I want to talk about your book, the latest one you have, and I want to talk about because she's written 3 books for the viewers. Dr. Morrison has written 3 books. I want to talk about your latest book, and I want to talk about the things that you have coming up, which are all kinds of things. But we got to go over your historical past because there are a lot of people who don't know the things that you've done. So some of the questions I will ask you, you probably answered 1,000 times, but I'd just like for you to answer them again.
I will do the best I can, Earl.
So you grew up in D.C. on 16th Street, not too far from the White House. Am I correct?
12 blocks from the White House. I used to could come out of my house, walk to the corner, look down the street, and there she was, the most powerful house in the world. And at the time, because I was a little girl, we lived, that was our neighborhood, so we didn't pay any attention to the fact that the White House was right down the street. I
Right.
mean, literally walking distance.
That's crazy. And your first professional gig, I believe, was in Constitution Hall.
You know what? It was yeah, my first professional gig.
Right.
I mean like a big time deal.
Uh-huh.
Because I was all around the city doing little teeny baby gigs. But that first one was at Constitution Hall. And I get tickled because Eddie Murphy always says that he was the first Black person to perform
Uh-huh.
at Constitution Hall, and I'm like,
Right.
no, no, no. But
Well,
yeah,
you know, because back in those days, it wasn't too. I'm not trying to say your age, but back then it wasn't too far from when Marian Anderson was able to go into the Constitution Hall. Not too many of us were able to go into the Constitution
right,
Hall
right,
at that
yeah.
time.
Now, mind you, I was a young girl. I was a teenager, uh, a young teenager going on that stage, and I'm just shocked I wasn't about to just fall out because I hadn't been on a stage that big before, and I
Okay.
was still,
Right.
kid.
Well, one of the things that is amazing about your historical career is, well, when I was coming up, or I was a little bit after you, people nowadays don't know how big a deal it was that you were able to go over and perform on the USO tour. That's
Yes,
huge. You know, that may not mean anything to anybody right now, but back then, if you went over to entertain our troops on the USO tour,
yes, it was a big deal. It's a big deal,
it was
big.
major. Tell me a little about the experience and how did that come about, Sylvia?
Sure, as a matter of fact, I need to stop looking at myself because I'm trying to have suave. I'm trying to be like,
You're so
So
stupid.
I keep looking over myself. I'm like, oh, Earl got me looking jive. Like I'm doing this thing. But we four of us initially went to Europe as a result of being in the Miss Black America pageant, and they sent four of us over there to entertain war veterans who were. We started out. Well, actually, it was really a Germany tour, but we made a stop or two in Europe. So I placed in the Miss Black America pageant, and they
Okay.
looked for me. We didn't have cell phones and internet, so if they didn't have your phone number, it was almost hard to find people. You
Right.
had to find somebody who could know somebody who would know somebody that knew you, and then you'd hope they have your number, and that's kind of what happened. With the exception, I found them because the whole reason why I wanted to get into the Miss Black America pageant was to get on the national platform because there was
Right.
nowhere for me to perform as a Black female, entertaining and doing comedy and singing. Because I started out singing. A lot of people don't know that. They have no clue that I was a singer at first. Oh, I would get on stage and I would think I was everybody from Don Ross to I was a singer. And I would just say, hello, everybody, no matter where you go, I'm going to tell you that. So I wanted to be a singer. And when I went to Europe, I went because I did impressions,
Right.
because I felt like there were so many female singers and they were all gorgeous and beautiful and fabulous and wonderful. And I said, I mean, we had some DC people um, who, like the Fonz. There was a singing group from out of DC called the Fonz. Avis, one of the singers, went to Las Vegas and hooked up with Wayne Newton, and she's having a fabulous career. But I said, I don't know about that singing thing because I was in a group. I was in a group called the Passions. Earl, you're getting some exclusives here because I usually don't get a chance to talk about this kind of stuff because I'm thinking, well, I was in the singing group. I was with the Passions. But one of the girls left to go home, and she didn't come back. And so we were stretched out with only three of us. And one wanted to go away to school, I think it was, and one was having a baby. So there I was by myself. And I said, I'm not gonna sing. I'm gonna do comedy. I'm gonna do my impressions and get out here and do the thing. And that's how I basically started in the comedy industry.
Okay. All right. Wow. So, Sylvia, all these years I've known you, and I never wanted to ask you, but the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear USO tour is Bob Hope. Did you ever meet Bob Hope, Sylvia?
You know what? No, I never met Bob Hope because he went to several different parts of the world on USO tours. Because USO,
Okay.
you don't know where you were going to go on those tours.
Right.
But you did know that you would be entertaining the American troops. And Earl, let me say this. When I went over there, I didn't know what to expect because I was still a young, very young woman, like 21, maybe 20, 21. And when I got there and we went out on stage the first time, I was so pleasantly overwhelmed because you could see, and I'm being matching words, you could see a sea of men and women in uniform, so excited that we were there that you just embraced it. I mean, thousands of our troops there for us because they weren't home. They'd been gone fighting in a war. And there we were over there entertaining them. And I'll never forget that I said to myself, this is so enlightening. And so, I mean, I have these people right here in front of me and basically in my hands. And I pray to God they like me. I pray they do. And I'll tell you, I got amazing standing ovations. Well, there was two of us by the time the tour got to rolling. But there was a guy back in the States who said he wanted to meet me because he wanted to see if this young Black girl could do what they claimed over in Europe she was doing in the magazines and newspapers, that she was doing impressions of people. And he'd never seen a Black girl do impressions.
Right.
So that man who wanted to see me was a guy, and he happened to be my very first manager, guy named Red Fox.
Wow. Are you
Yes.
kidding me, Joe?
Red Fox signed me on the spot when he and his team flew me out to LA. I had a
Okay.
contract right there and signed it. I didn't read it. I didn't care. That's how crazy it was back then. It was crazy. I signed the
Okay.
contract. I didn't care. It was Red Fox.
It
I
was
figured
Red
I'll be
Fox.
out of this contract in a while, so I signed it right on the spot. I was signing
So, Silver,
contracts on the spot. Yes.
you you first started becoming an impressionist because they said you had extraordinary hearing and you could like hear crickets, but nobody else could hear. Explain that.
Yeah.
What was going on with that?
Well, I could hear. I knew when bumblebees were around. I could actually hear butterflies flapping.
Wow.
And people look at me like, what? Look, yeah, I could tell you if a bumblebee was in flight. He could be like half a block down the street. I knew he was on his way to where we were. And I knew then the bumblebees loved me. They thought I was like a big old giant pollen lollipop. And I would always say, I wish they'd leave me alone. I don't want to be y'all's friend. Leave me alone. But they didn't.
Right.
They would come and I would tell my sister, there's some bumblebees coming around. And she was like, how do you know? And I say, I hear them. And she was like, how you gonna hear a bumblebee? I said, I don't know, but I do. And so it was I could hear uh people's because I did animals and bugs at first. And then I
Uh-huh.
started doing my neighbors, then the school principal and the teachers. I could tell by their dialect how I could imitate them. If somebody was talking like they was from the country or something, I could detect that.
Okay.
Or guys, I used to do men too impressions. I can still do a couple of them, but I was yeah, that was that. And I figured I could entertain more people as a comedic impressionist than I could as a singer. But nowadays people are
Right.
saying you should have done both of them because God, you are a singer. Okay, all
Mhm.
right, yeah,
Well, we did, I'm not. We didn't talk about this today because I didn't know whether, at some time, I don't want to right now, if you will, I didn't know whether you were possibly going to do any impressions. I don't like to put impressionists on the spot like that. Do this. Everybody's always running. Do this one. Do that one. And
yeah, yeah.
uh, I know you're on the show because we're good friends. I don't want to ask you to do anything that you do for a living because I can't pay you to do no impressions. But hopefully, maybe sometime during the show, you will do a couple of impressions just to show that who you are.
Oh, I would have to, especially since you started off saying you have some new folks on. I'm sure they're going to be saying, well, to themselves, well, do
Yeah,
something. And so, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely,
Not right now. We'll get to it though, because you got so many. And the thing about you, Sylvia, you've been around such a long time. There isn't a character that you cannot do that someone on this show from 8 to 80 can't relate to. I mean, you can do
yeah, yeah,
Jane Hathaway, stuff like that. And people still watch Beverly Hillbillies to this day. So
yeah.
they would be able to relate to that. It doesn't have to be someone new like the new people that you do, like Michelle Obama and stuff like that. So, maybe we'll give a little mixture later on in the show, but we got a lot to cover. So we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Wait a minute,
Now,
Earl, wait a minute before you go. Let me look. Well, you got this set up, so I'm doing my eyes like this to myself and thinking
okay,
that I'm,
okay,
a
well,
little
we're going
sexy.
to
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
get so let's get back to this old tour. You were sent there because you placed in the Miss Black America pageant. Now, I want you to
Yes.
tell your viewers. I want you to tell your viewers who you tied with in the contest. I mean, young or old would be able to relate to this person. I want you to tell the viewers who you
Yeah.
tied with in the contest.
Well, at the time, we did you wouldn't know her name at that time, and
Right.
uh, but ended up becoming Thelma from Good Times.
Right.
And we tied for first place and had to do some stuff. Oh, I ended up beating her out, but she made such an impact that they sent a card. I was there when she got the card from the people who were doing Good Times and wanted her to interview for the part of Thelma. And she went to interview, again they sent me to Europe to entertain the troops. So we've run into each other every once in a while. She's such a delightful person, just such a delightful person.
Yeah.
And we it's amazing at the turnout of the people that I've worked with and how their careers have, well, all of our careers have
Uh-huh.
like blossomed and done a lot.
Yeah. You know, uh, it's been crazy. You had a crazy, crazy career for sure.
Just so before because we might not get to this, but I just want to insert right here, right quick. When I was in, when Red Fox sent for me when I was in Europe, I was in LA because that's where he was, and
Mhm.
I would go to nightclubs to try to hone my craft, to better it. And I was always at a place called the Comedy Store. They
Uh-huh.
were brand new. And I would be in line because we'd have to get in line, get a number, and then they call your number and you come up on stage for a 2 or 3 minute presentation. And I would be in line with Jay Leno, David Letterman, Robin Williams, who was really my favorite. And Robin used to always say, you know what, Sylvia, one day you're gonna be big. You're gonna be big. And I'm thinking to myself, I figured I'm gonna start throwing in a couple of little impressions here and everything. And
Yeah.
he would say, you're just amazing. You just do all these voices and you know how funny Robin is. And I really miss him. He was so nice to me because people might want to understand that uh, at that time it was a white man's genre. Comedy was not. There were very few black women doing comedy at that time. Very few. I mean, you can count them on one hand. Um, Mom's Mabley, in my opinion, is the true queen of comedy. And if they're going to let anybody else come up behind her, I would personally think Monique.
Mhm.
Monique has some stories that are like incredible that I would give. Uh, it was a difficult task. I used to get so disappointed and a little heartbroken, but I just happened to prevail. I wasn't quitting, wasn't
Right.
going nowhere, So
Right. I, after all this time, I, I'm so cheap, but I finally gave up the books and read your almost there.
Oh my
So,
God, did you?
and again, all these years, we've been very good friends. I just had no idea the things that you went through in your life, and I have found more of appreciation for you because I was just
Oh,
crazy. I was just crazy about you anyway. But when I read your that book, you got to get that book. Almost there.
almost there, almost. Yeah.
Yeah, almost there. Almost fabulous book. If you wanna, Dr. Morrison is the author of three books. It's almost there, Jelly Beans from Heaven, and her new book out, Satan, God, COVID, Satan. We're gonna talk
Me,
about.
Satan, God, and COVID-19.
Yeah,
That's yeah.
we're gonna go over that.
Okay.
And um, so if you want to check out one of her books, I recommend all of them. Her website is on the bottom of the screen right there. If you want to check out her website, check out more about her because there's no way we're going to be able to cover everything that she's done in her career. So you can check out her website right there. It's Sylvia, oh yeah.com. Okay, well, time's flying, Sylvia. We just started.
I
You know,
know. I'm like,
oh,
wow,
so we got to get to the good stuff.
amazing.
Then we're gonna talk about the books, your books, and what you got coming on. Speaking of Moms Mabley, let's we're gonna be going back and forth. So let's go into that. You got a project coming up where you're gonna be doing a one woman play about her. Can we talk about that since we're
Yes.
on that subject right now?
Yeah.
Give me the
Well,
scoop on that.
right before the pandemic showed up, we were going to open at the Howard Theater in Washington, D.C. And the title of the play is The Return of Jackie Moms Mabley. And it chronicles her life from the time maybe she was 50, because she didn't always do comedy. She was a chorus girl, and she did songs and she danced, and she was absolutely delightfully gorgeous. I saw some pictures of her in her young days. I'm like, that's Mom's Mabley. Well, yeah, she was absolutely delightfully gorgeous. And what happened is she wanted to move her family to Washington, D.C. And she felt like she wasn't making enough money. So she was going to audition. I think it was the Monday night where all of the stars who are big stars now used to go and audition to try to up what they were doing. And she wanted to sing a song. And so I get, as me playing Mom's Mabley, I get to imitate and do all of the women that she absolutely loved, like Ella Fitzgerald, um,
Mhm.
uh, what is her name? Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, um, uh, 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 women from that era. And I actually get to make that delivery as Moms is watching these ladies. And I get to do Moms as a young woman and as an older woman, as she became a comedian. And I have to go into a voice, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like, so, yeah.
It's so it's so funny too because I fell asleep and I'm kind of mad right now because I'm supposed to have that picture of you looking like Miles Manley coming up for the upcoming project. I'm supposed to put that right there on the screen, but I fell asleep.
It's okay.
And
It's all
there's
right.
another picture I had. We're friends. I never looked at you funny or anything like that way because we're friends. But I got a picture of you when you were talking about you got in a pageant. You had to sing because you weren't good looking. I got a picture of you where you are a straight out fox. And I'm like, I'm so mad I didn't get to put that picture on there because I put
Oh
it on
my,
there and they say, is that Sylvia? I
yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong, you're still a beautiful person on the inside and the outside. You're beautiful,
Thank
you're
you.
stylish and classy. It's funny. I know a couple of guys that always talk about you and kind of out the side of their mouth, talking about, oh, yeah, that's Sylvia. She's sexy. And I'm like, that's my friend, so watch how you talk about her. But
Wow.
when I saw these two pictures today, I posted it on my page. You was flat out fox, flat out fox, and I felt
Thank
kind of embarrassed because I'm like, Why are you looking at your girl Sylvia that way? But you were
Oh, that is so sweet.
you were stunning, Sylvia. And I dropped the ball because I'm supposed to put this picture right here, right now. But I
Are
just
you talking about the picture where they thought I looked like Mary Wilson with all
yeah,
the hair?
yeah. But I got two other ones where you was flat out Fox, flat
Oh, thank you.
out Fox. And
Look, I'm going on your page as soon as this is over with so I can look
I,
and see
I'm so
which.
mad that I don't have it. I don't want to mess up the program. If I try to click something, mess everything up, I'll be so mad because I got you here. So, when you're ahead of the game, stay ahead of the game. If they go to the website, they can see a picture of you. Or if they
Okay.
go to my page, they can see it. But Lord, I see why you placed in the beauty pageant.
Oh, that's so sweet. That really is.
And I see why these guys, these old men, be talking about how out the side of their mouth about you. I said, that's my friend. You better watch it. He said, man, that's
That
Sylvia.
is hilarious. Oh my
Sylvia
God.
is something else. I'm like, I don't look at Sylvia that way. That's my buddy. What's wrong with you?
That's funny, Earl.
You
Earl,
know?
you know so many amazing. You know, so if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have my material, my comedic material on Latin women. You know, I do a whole bit about how Latin women are just the most beautiful women ever. And they just, and I do a whole take on it
Yeah.
because I said, Earl know all these salsa dances and that thing you had up of J Lo. I was like, whoa, okay. Oh, it was beautiful, just beautiful.
Enough about me, Sylvia. Nobody wants to hear about me. We all want to hear about you. Now, how in the world? Now, I don't care how old anyone is. Everyone can relate to this gentleman. He's the greatest. How in the world did you end up hosting a roast for the greatest Muhammad Ali at the Apollo Theater in New York City? Tell me how that came about.
That that was what happened was I saw in the New York Times because I was living in New York at the time that Muhammad Ali was coming to New York City to the Apollo because they were going to roast him and Richard Pryor was going to be the host. And I'm like, oh no, there's no way I'm going to let this happen and I don't be at this event. But I knew I couldn't get tickets. I knew it was going to be sold out and you had to have connections in order to be there. So I decided I would crash the roast. Okay, as a black Ruth Bussey. Now, for people that don't know who Ruth Bussey is, she's a character that used to be on a show called Laugh-In. And Laugh-In was sort of like the in living color for white people back then.
Right.
But we didn't have a lot of black people on TV during that time, so she was hilarious. And I said, I'm going to go as a black Ruth Bussey. But to make a really long story short, Mr. Pryor decided, or it came to pass that he couldn't be there. He
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a last minute thing. They had nobody else that was available. And so one of the girls who actually was Miss Black America recommended to Dick Gregory, who was the uh, head of the board of directors of that particular event, that he should bring in this girl named Sylvia Traymore Morrison. Oh my God, she doesn't pray. She just lit it up. And him looking at his watch like, well, the show is tonight, so we got to bring her in. And that's how I got to host. And when she told me that, she said, you don't have to crash the roast because I was getting my outfit together. I was, oh, please. And she said, you don't have to do that. You're going to host the roast. And I was like,
Wow.
and I hosted it. And there was so many stars there. Dick Cavett was there, Fred
Wow.
Williams,
Hammer.
Fred Williams, yeah, Jim Brown, all these football players, basketball players, but baseball players, sports people for Muhammad Ali.
Uh-huh.
It was amazing. LaWanda Page was there. His cooks, Lana Shabazz, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Earl, it was just amazing. It was amazing, and there I was replacing Richard Pryor. Boom.
God, it's crazy. When I tell people these stories about, I said, my friend Silver, they said, Earl, you exaggerate. You probably don't really know Sylvia, and the stories that you're telling me, it's just a bit much. So cut it out. I'm like, no, this is true. This is true
Yeah.
stuff. And one, there were several great comedians there, but a lot of people don't know. I have a film on that on my page as well. I didn't have time to get the video. I did this poor job production for this. But one of the comedians there was Dick Gregory, and you guys
Yeah.
forged a friendship. So, how did you feel that night when you were talking to Dick Gregory and Muhammad Ali? Just what was going through your mind?
Well, when you think about it, Muhammad Ali at that time was the most popular man in the world. He was so popular that they wrote so many books on him. The only other person that has more books written about them uh, than Muhammad Ali, the only other person who has more books written about him is Jesus Christ. Now,
Wow.
is that heavy or what? So now you got Muhammad Ali. I've never met him. I've never met Mr. Gregory. But Mr. Gregory and I ended up being really good friends down through the years. But when it was time for me to bring Muhammad Ali out on that stage, I'm looking at it. They brought him downstairs. He's standing there like like God. You could tell God carved him because he was. I don't even know how to explain it. He looked like Ulysses or somebody standing in his black suit and just built. I've never seen anybody built like that. And I was so fascinated because he always kept a good smile on his face with the big eyes. Yeah, 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 yeah. But he was just Muhammad Ali.
Right.
And I remember saying to him, Mr. Ali, I'm going to bring you right out. I have a little surprise for you because I was going to do my impression of him.
Mhm.
And I know he'd never seen a woman doing an impression of him.
Right.
And uh, I can't quite remember. I have the whole film,
Mhm.
but they unfortunately took me out of the film doing that, and they put Billy Crystal in.
Mm.
That's a whole nother story. That's a totally different story. And so um, Garrett Morse was there that night too,
On
and he's
Saturday
the
Night
one.
Live. On Saturday Night Live, Garrett Morris.
Garrett Morse from Saturday Night Live. He
Wow.
came over to me and he said, "You have got to meet my boss." Speaking of Lorne Michaels, and true to his word, he took me over to NBC and introduced me to Lorne Michael. And lo and behold, he gave me a contract on the spot.
Wow.
He offered me the job that night. So he didn't give me the contract. He offered me the job. That's what he did. I didn't get a contract that night. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in. And I
Yeah.
remember my first assignment at Saturday Night Live was with a singer named Linda Ronstadt. A
Wow.
lot of people may not know who Linda Ronstadt is, but she's a white girl, fabulous for she was loved all around the world.
Mm.
And that was my first assignment was to work with her.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you were working on Saturday Night Live, with them, so I don't want to seem like I'm just making up stuff, but weren't Bellucci and Aykroyd on the show at the time you were doing it?
Yes, Don Bellucci, Dan Aykroyd, Jane Curtin, Gilda Radner, all there was the original crew. It was the original crew. The
Wow.
original crew before they were the first ones because I think Saturday Night Live may have been about 3 or 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't iconic. They weren't the biggest, they were on their way. They were
Right.
on their way. And
Wow.
I remember going back and I don't like to tell this part because I don't want it to seem negative, but I don't think John Belushi liked female comics or whatever. But I remember being so excited because I invited some of my friends
Uh-huh.
from one of my friends that I invited was Rashida Moore. Now, I don't know if you know who Rashida Moore is,
Mm-hmm.
but she was the girl connected with that whole Marion Barry thing.
Right.
Felt so bad for her. So bad when she got hooked up in that. But anyway, Saturday Night Live was I was amazed. I'm there, NBC, backstage, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, all these people. And, I was an associate writer. So I didn't get to do TV.
Right.
I didn't get it. I wasn't one of the ones they hired to come on stage and be in the show. But
Right.
if one lady sent a note in and said years later, it said, "What a shame you guys didn't use Sylvia Traymore Morrison. She could have been every Black female you wanted, and
Yeah.
you didn't use her for that reason. You just blew it." And
Right.
they complained. But I have to give Lorne Michaels credit. He said to me, he said, "You're not going to go on stage in front of the TV right off."
Uh-huh.
So he said, "But you'll work your way up,"
Yeah.
and I never did.
That's not too much has changed in the industry, but you
No,
were right there when it was really, really, you know, it was just a different time.
it was tough. It was really tough because I know even when I first started, and I was in California, moved to New York. I was back and forth to LA and then over to New York. I lost my parents, blah blah blah, and they just didn't want to let you on stage.
Well,
The question was,
you were Black. What?
they just didn't want. But
Everybody.
who allowed me to use their microphone and do and perform?
Hmm,
And I love this man to this day
hmm,
because he doesn't even know it. I don't think. George Wallace may have told him because they're good friends.
hmm,
When I would be in New York City and wanted to get on the microphone, Jerry Seinfeld used to host a place called Catch a Rising Star.
hmm.
And for whatever reason, he would think about it. He'd say, "Come on, Sylvia, you can do a couple
Yeah,
of minutes."
yeah,
And it made my heart smile.
yeah.
It made my heart smile. And there was another guy who used to host Rodney Dangerfield's club, and his name was David Copperfield, not the magician. Not the
Uh-huh.
magician. He's a comedian. I think he's in Europe now. I've recently reached out to him, so I'm hoping to hear from him. But David used to always let me, and there's a story in my book, as you will probably remember, about Sammy Davis Jr.
Right.
And I was hoping I could, meet Sammy so that I could go on the Johnny Carson show.
Uh-huh.
And David made it possible for me to perform when Sammy Davis Jr. got there. So I did have a couple of good people. There's good people in everything, Earl. There's some good people in everything. At least I believe. I believe that. So the industry is a little tough now. It's tough
Yeah.
because they didn't give me no. I earned every single thing I got.
Yeah.
Every award I had to because they weren't gonna give. They weren't just passing them out.
Time is flying. We got a little bit more time. I know you're gonna give me some more minutes, but give me a couple of impressions while you're there.
Well,
Some of the
okay.
old and some of the new. Yeah.
Well, here's what I like to do because I always like to do my very favorite two impressions.
Okay. That's
And if they were here, they would. Oh, hey, they are here. Hey, Whoopi Goldberg, come here for a second. Come here. I got Earl, Go Earl from DC here. Come and say a few words to him. Come on. Hey, look. Let me. Hey, Earl, how are you?
I'm really.
Now, I'm excited because Sylvia always talks about you. And I'm thinking we'll have you on The View. And while you're at The View, you can be on my girls' show too. Hey, Wendy Williams, come on. Come on, come on. How you doing? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. So I'm finally meeting Earl. Go Earl. So I really got to come and dance with you once, at least once, Earl. Okay. I remember the first time. You may not remember this, but you were in New York and all these people were following behind you, and you picked me to be your dance partner. I was so upset because you were so perfectly dancing, and I stepped on your toes at least 5 or 6 times. And I remember.
You're
So there you
funny.
go.
Look, Sylvia. Okay. Now, stupid.
That's hilarious.
All
I'm just
right.
thinking about it. Somebody stepping on your toes. I don't blame 'em. I'd be embarrassed too. I'd be, Earl, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry.
So look, Sylvia,
Hmm.
we're she's in the prime of her career. She's winning Grammys and everything. How did you get to? I know you told me the story, but I need you to tell me the story about how you became the person to tour 23 cities. Just you as the opening act and Whitney Houston.
Oh, oh my God. Now that right there was such a blessing because the comic that was supposed to open for her thought it was a Saturday night when in fact it was a Friday night. That comic was Andy Evans. And he had been on tour. He was already on tour, but he had come home. He didn't know that he was supposed to be there Friday. So the promoters called me up and said, Sylvia, can you be down here at the Warner Theater? Whitney Houston's here. We don't have an opening act for him. And it was like 20 minutes to 8, and the show started at 8. And they said, if you can get down here somewhere near 8, we'll throw a bonus in your envelope. So I called a cab. I put on my makeup in the cab, did my hair in the cab. And lo and behold, it was at the Warner Theater. And I walked out on that stage, Earl, and what a blessing I got. Maybe 3 standing ovations. As a matter of fact, I think I still have the article that the Washington Post did, and they said the ovations were plenty, because it was a really good show. She got standing ovations, but anyway, she came backstage, and I met her, and she said, "You know what? When I go on the road, I'm gonna take you with me. I'm gonna take you with me. I'm gonna take you with me." And I was like, "Yeah, right. Whitney Houston gonna take me on the road with her." Sure enough, a couple months later, she had her people had assigned someone else to open her show, and she said, "No, this is not working. I want Sylvia." Next thing I knew, they called me up and said, "Can you be in New York tonight?" I was like, "Are you kidding?" Whitney Houston. So she kept her word. I love Whitney. I just wish most people knew the Whitney that I knew. I wish they did.
Right. Wow.
What a human being. Give you the shirt off her back. They don't show that part of her. But anyway,
I know.
it has it catapulted my career to just be with the opening in 23 different cities, United States cities, with the
Wow.
greatest singer of her time. There I was. Nobody else was on the show. I opened, she closed, and she didn't want nobody else on the show because
Wow.
it's not a brag, it's just what it was. We rocked her show. It was, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. Every night I would go out there, and I remember one night, and I know we got to go, but I got to tell you this right quick. We were in Canada,
Oh,
and
we don't have to go. The only reason we don't have to go is because I'm sure you got projects you working on. We don't have to go just yet. We
well,
can
after this
definitely.
story, we'll wrap it up. So, we were in, I think we were in some part of Canada. And anyway, the show was so wonderful. I mean, the audience, it was packed. It was maybe 18,000 people in the audience. I don't remember how many people. It was all of our shows were anywhere from 8 to 30,000 people. Nobody
Wow.
knew me at all. So that meant I had to really, really deliver when I went out there on that stage. And at the end of when she came out, because I'd already gone off stage and I would always come out and watch her show. She loved it. I saw her looking at me from the stage and she was doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and she like, but I didn't know if she was talking to me. So she sent security to get me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh man, what have I done now? What did I do? Did I do something wrong? And she said, bring Sylvia up on stage. And Earl, just like Muhammad Ali, I failed to tell you that part, but they brought me over to Whitney and she took my hand
Mm-hmm.
and she held it up in the air. And she said, wasn't Sylvia great? I'm getting ready to cry about it. It was one of the
Oh.
most magnificent moments I had in my career. She said, wasn't Sylvia great? And I believe you could hear the roar of the audience
Mm.
for miles. for
Wow.
miles. And I never forgot that. I went back to my dressing room and I sat down and cried my eyes out because the great Whitney Houston had just put me on display as being great. And I loved her for that.
Wow.
It's a memory I'll never forget. Never.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were with the great one of the greatest singers, Whitney Houston. You were with the greatest, Muhammad Ali. You were affiliated with one of the greatest comedy shows ever, Saturday Night Live. No wonder. So I don't need to ask the question I'm going to ask you. It's like every time I look up Sylvia and I tease you about it, I'm not hating you, know, I love you to death. It's like they make up awards to give you. Everyone makes up awards to you. Every week it's some crazy award. I saw Sylvia back in 19. I'm like, I don't understand. So I was talking to this person the other day, and I was trying to. They're not the brightest, and they're not really educated. And so I was trying to tell them the living legend that you were and the different things that you have done. And I said, let me break it down to you this way. You from DC, right? He said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, okay. Sylvia picture was painted on the mural of Ben's Chili Bowl. Now, anybody from DC know when your picture goes on the mural of Ben's Chili Bowl, you gotta be somebody. I know you have a good friend with the owner of Ben's Chili Bowl, but I think she put you on there because you really are a legend. She's not putting you on there because you're her friend. How did you feel when you knew you were going to be on Ben's Chili Bowl?
Well, they told me that they wanted to put my picture up. Um, not on the outside, but on the inside of Ben's Chili Bowl. And it's like no matter where you go, and you get your picture of Ben's, because Ben's is a landmark. It's a DC landmark that any and everybody that comes here generally knows about Ben's. And yes, Mrs. Ali, Virginia Ali, what a shining example of just a wonderful human being she is, you know, and her sons and her daughter-in-laws, and they pulled through all of the construction that took place downtown on U Street. She used to tell me about all of that happened. So I was absolutely delighted. The press came out, uh, all of the major channels, NBC, CBS, ABC, BET, TV1. You know, everybody was there. Uh, a lot of celebrities came out. It was just amazing. It was amazing. It
Mm,
was amazing.
wow.
It was.
I mean, let me give you an example of making up a award for you. You got a citation 2 weeks ago from the governor of Maryland.
Yeah.
You all never met him. How he gonna come up and give you some kind of award? What in the world?
Yeah, it was like, okay, thanks to Sharon Streeter because she was a cheerleader for me. She was like, no, Sylvia's got to get one of these awards, and I appreciate it. Governor Hogan, I don't think he realized that I'm one of the people that wrote him uh, to try to get some stuff done in Maryland. When I was in Maryland, I was like, wait a minute, Governor, you know. But yeah, so it's all of it is appreciated. I am so honored and just thrilled
Okay.
that people think enough of me to come forward. You know, I got a DCBX gave me an award.
Wow.
Oh, oh yes, they did. And a lot of people know in my network know DCBX because they were responsible for putting together the stage and the whole get up for my 50th anniversary. All
Mm-hmm.
they heard was DCBX, DCBX. Who did this? DCBX. So Lee and Kat are forever etched in my
Yeah.
heart
Yeah.
because they are, I
You,
love DCBX.
you guys are kind of tight, aren't you?
Oh, I
You tight with Lee and Cat,
what? I am. I get to when Lee calls me, I just get so tickled. You would think it was Wayne Newton or somebody calls me.
huh?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. All right. So, Sylvia, you're going on 51 years in the business. You were born and raised in Washington D.C.
yes,
You've met everybody who's ever become anybody. Martin, all of them. You have all the funny comedians, Tony Woods, everybody. But you have a special bond with the mayor of Rap City, Chris Thomas. Can you elaborate
Yes.
on that a bit? How did that happen, and what's the story on
Well, Chris and I I do impressions and he does impressions. So I think, I don't know how many years ago it was. It was quite a few because Chris started out early. He was like in high school when he started. And he saw me one day and he said, I can't believe you just did Muhammad Ali. So he started doing Muhammad Ali.
that? Right.
And so he said, you know what? Next time I'm gonna call you up on stage because he does what's the the guy's name that used to always be with Ali. And now he's gonna the sports commentator.
Cosell,
Um
Howard Cosell.
Howard Cosell. He would do Howard Cosell and I would do Muhammad Ali. And then it stretched out, he would do uh the guy that played with Diana Ross. See, I'm not remembering their names, but when I describe who they were, he played Lady Sings he played in the movie Billy D. Williams.
Yeah.
Chris would do Billy D. Williams, I'd do Diana Ross. And he
Yeah.
baby, 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 don't leave me. And he said, okay, so we added that on. Then he would add on this one, and I would add on Patti LaBelle. He would come and add on this one. I would add on the so if I'm anywhere in the audience where he is, he's going to call me up on the stage and vice versa. Vice
Wow.
versa. Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know Martin and Dave Chappelle and all her, right?
Well, I have a special coming up that I've been invited to be a part of. It's a special about a club out in LA called Fat Tuesdays. And they have, these are people who used to play there. I'm the only one that's on the special that didn't necessarily play there. But because of my history, they wanted me to be a part of it. So you have Dave Chappelle, Eddie Murphy,
Mm, mm,
uh,
mm.
Martin Lawrence, Kevin Hart, Monique, myself, um, Chris Rock, Chris Thomas.
Mhm.
It's all three of the Chris's, all three of the main Chris's. That's about 9 or 10 of us. And we're doing a special for Amazon.
Mm.
And I don't know when it is. We probably won't film until maybe 2 or 3 months from now because of they're waiting for the pandemic to slow its roll.
Right.
So yeah.
Mm.
Oh, and speaking of the pandemic, so if people want to get the book, Me, Satan, God, and COVID, you have it right there. I'm looking at it. I'm like, Earl is on his job. Look at that. It's right there. www.sylviaohyeah.com. Um, there's all three of the books are there. But yeah,
What?
Earl, I guess I better say goodnight. I gotta
Yeah.
prepare for another,
Okay.
make a
Okay.
preparation
Well,
early in the morning. One of those shows on the other
right.
side of the world. So I am
Sylvia,
so delighted.
I want to thank you for taking the time out. You know, we didn't even scratch the surface, so it's going to have to be a part two coming up, maybe in a couple of
Okay,
months to
I
finish
would
it
love
off.
that. Yes.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule, and also so always so great to talk to you, especially to see you, your smiling face. I want to thank you so much for coming to the Black History Month special edition of Straight Up Talk with Earl Rush. I hope to see you soon, and maybe you could get me a ticket when you do the Mom's Baby show or something like that.
Well, I'm in, but I appreciate you for having me because see, I know a lot of people want to be on your show because I was sitting back when I was like, Earl has a show and you bringing all these legends on and really like doing the daggone thing. So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, Sylvia. We'll check back with
Okay.
you later on. Thank you so much. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
All right.